Okay, in this video, we are going to review how to solve one variable equations, and then on the back, we are going to solve one variable inequalities. Same process, but there's one thing you have to remember about inequalities. So whenever you are solving for x, they could ask that many different ways. In this case, they're saying what value of x makes the equation true? So basically solve for the value of x. Whenever you see parentheses, you need to take care of those first. So we are going to distribute a -2 to each of those and get -6. And then -2 times -2 is positive 4x. Okay, on the right side, we're distributing a 4 to each term, giving us 24x plus 12. Okay, now that the parentheses are gone, you want to combine like terms. We've got a constant, we've got x, we've got constant. There's no terms to combine on each side. So now we are ready to move things to the other side of the equal sign. That's why I draw the line down the middle. Okay, we want x's on one side, numbers on the other. So I'm going to take these 4 x's away. And that turns the left side into -6 equals 20x plus 12. I always try to keep the x term positive. Okay, so that means I need to take this term and move it to the other side. Even though it becomes negative, I need x's on one side, numbers on the other. We want our equation balanced. I don't want 2 terms over here and 1 term here. I don't want to put everything on one side. And so I'm going to subtract 12. Remember, you have to do the opposite. And so I subtracted 12 from both sides, and that would give me -18. Use your calculator if you need to, equals 20x. Okay, the last step, this is 20 times x, so I need to divide both sides by 20. And STAAR loves fractions, so don't let that scare you. You can use your calculator, and so that ends up giving us x equals, and then you need to simplify the fraction. So in your calculator, type in -18, it's kind of dark, -18 divided by 20, that's what I have written here. Press enter, it gives me a decimal, press math, enter, enter, -9/10. So x equals -9/10 is my answer. Okay, on question 2, it says which value of x makes the equation true? Okay, draw your line where the equal sign is. Take care of this distribution on the right-hand side. So I'm distributing a 6 to both terms, giving me 6a, and then 6 times 4 is 24. And I've got 9a over here. Okay, I need a's on one side, numbers on the other, so I'm going to subtract all of these a's. So now I have 3a equals 24, divide by 3, a equals 8. All right. Now, number 3 is really ugly, so we're going to have a lot of simplifying to do. So find your equal sign and draw your line straight down to keep everything organized. So we need to clean up the left side, clean up the right side, and then we'll start balancing. Okay, the first thing I see is this set of parentheses. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, and so when you're looking at what to distribute, there's a negative sign. And so remember, there's an invisible 1 there. So you're distributing a -1. You're not distributing this -8x. That's not what is directly in front of the parentheses. So -1 gets distributed to the -9 and distributed to the -3x. Okay, so bring this -8x down. Don't do anything with it yet. -1 times -9 is +9. So I'm going to put a plus as my operation. -1 times -3x is plus 3x. And then we've got this plus 2x. It was not in the parentheses, so nothing changes about that. So don't lose any of your x's. That'll change things when we start combining like terms. Okay, and so I've got 3x terms I can combine. I have negative 8x plus 3x plus 2. That's going to end up being negative 3, but if you need to, you can't type the x, but you can type the numbers. Negative 8 plus 3 plus 2. That's negative 3. Don't forget your x. And then we have that plus 9 that doesn't combine with anything. Okay, so the left-hand side of my equation is as simple as it can be. Okay, bring down my equal sign. Now we can clean up the right-hand side. So on the right-hand side, I've got a set of parentheses where I'm distributing this negative 7. Okay, just to these two terms in the parentheses. Negative 7 times negative 3x. I'm going to draw my equal sign. Negative 7 times negative 3 is positive 21. Don't lose your x. Negative 7 times negative 9 is positive 63. Just bring down that minus 11. There's nothing we need to do with it just yet. Now, we need to combine some like terms. I've got a 63 and a negative 11 that can combine since they don't have x's. So positive 63 minus 11 is 52. When that minus is after something, you need to use the minus sign, not the negative. Okay, so 52. So on the right-hand side, I have 21x plus 52 since it was positive. Okay, looking a lot better. So now we're ready to get x's on one side, numbers on the other. And so I am going to add 3x to both sides. Gets rid of all of these, leaving me with a 9 on the left. On the right, I have 24x plus 52. Okay, next I need to move this 52 to the other side. I want x's on one side, numbers on the other. So even though it becomes negative, we need to have it on the other side. So 9 minus 52, negative 43. And don't let the fraction scare you, just keep going. We are dividing by 24. And so x equals, let's type it in and make sure it's as simple as it can be, negative 43 divided by the 24, because that's what I have written here. Ugly decimal, math, enter, enter. That's as simple as it could be. And so when you're looking at your answers, your answer choices, look for this. And if you don't find it, go find your mistake. Okay, so that's how you solve equations. Distribute, combine like terms, simplify as much as you can before you start balancing and moving things to the other side. The same process happens with inequalities, but you have to be super neat because the inequality flips if you divide by a negative at the end. So same process, draw your line and carry this little alligator, I call them alligators, this inequality, carry it all the way through. So if it flips, you can keep track of that. So the first thing I need to do is distribute this 2, giving me 2x plus 1 on the left-hand side, alligator, and then we have a 4x minus 8 that didn't need any simplification. Okay, we have x constant, so same drill. X is on one side, numbers on the other. And so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Alligator, 4 minus 2x is 2x. Bring down the negative 8. Okay, now we're ready to move this constant to the other side. And so I get 9 is greater than 2x. Last step is to divide by 2. And since this 2 is positive, there's not a negative, it's positive, do not flip your sign. Okay, and so my final answer has 9/2 over here, alligator, and x. Do not leave your answer like that. Always write x on the left. And since the alligator is facing away from the x, I need to preserve that. It's still facing away from the x. And then I have the 9/2 here. So always write your final answer with x on the left, not like that. Okay, so now that tells you which way to shade when you graph this. This says x is less than. If you stand up your sign and it makes an L, it's your less than. Because there's not a line underneath, I'm going to use an open circle for the 9/2. I'm going to shade to the left for less than. Okay, the sign makes an L, stands for less than, which also stands for left. Okay, and so I like to do a less than sign and write less, do a less than sign, write left. That's which way you shade, and it kind of points that way. Okay, so for the second one, they make them a little bit uglier. Here's that invisible 1 again, because we're distributing a -1 to each side. Okay, leave that -6 alone. That's not what you're distributing. It's not directly in front of the parentheses. So -1 times 4 is -4. -1 times 8x is -8x. Alligator with the line. Here we're distributing another -1. Gives me a -7x plus 8. Basically changes all the signs. Okay, we're ready to combine some like terms. Here's some like terms. Our constants without the x. -6 minus 4 is -10. And then that -8x doesn't combine with anything. Bring down the alligator. Okay, now we're ready to put x's on one side and constants on the other. So I'm going to add, gotta do the opposite, 8x to both sides, leaving me with a -10 on the left, alligator. -7 plus 8 is 1x, gotta love that. You don't have to write the 1. And then bring down that plus 8. Now the 8 has to go over here, so we subtract -18, alligator, 1x. We don't write the 1. And so now, do not leave your final answer like this. Write x on the left. This time the alligator is eating the x, so preserve that. It's facing the x, and then we have our -18. So don't look at that, look at this. Okay, so now that is not an L. That is not a less than, that is a greater than. And it also is equal to because of the line. Okay, and so we're going to do a closed circle. And then instead of shading these numbers to the left, we want to shade the greater than numbers. Okay, if this is -18, the bigger numbers are always going to be to the right. So that's what the graph would look like for this one. Okay, question 3. We've got some parentheses, so we're going to distribute the 6. 6 times 8 is 48. Don't lose your x. Alligator, -x minus 8. Okay. So we've got a constant and an x and a constant. It's balanced. We're ready to start getting x's on one side, numbers on the other. And so in this case, I have a -x here, so I'm going to add it to both sides so that it cancels over here, leaving me with just that -8. Over here, I've got the 24 plus, and then 48 plus x is 49x. Next, we need to move the constant to the other side. -8 minus 24, -8 minus 24 is -32. Divide by 49. We're dividing by a positive number, so do not flip your inequality. And so our final answer looks like that. Double check, make sure -32 over 49. Math, enter, enter. That's as simple as it gets. Okay, so on our number line, we're going to have a closed circle once again because of this line underneath the inequality. Off the screen. And then that is an L. That's a less than, so we're going to shade to the left with the negative 32 over 49. Okay, last one. We have negative x plus 11 greater than, and then we've got a set of parentheses, so let's distribute. It gives me 6 minus 3x, negative x plus 11. Okay, so now I am going to add 3x to both sides to get rid of all of these over here. Negative x plus 3x is positive 2x. And then now we need to get the 11 on the other side. And then divide by 2. That is a positive 2, so once again, no flipping. And so our final answer is x is greater than. We're going to have an open circle because there's no line. And since it's not an L, we shade to the right. The reason why we never had to flip an inequality is because I was very strategic in making sure that I always ended up with x having a positive coefficient. If you had left the x terms over here on the left the entire time, you would have eventually divided by a negative. You wouldn't have had this last step here. You would have flipped it because you were dividing by a negative.